Director General of Center for Air Power Studies, Air Marshal Anil Chopra, former Chiefs of Air Staff, Air Chief Marshal Kumaraswamy and Air Chief Marshal Tyagi, esteemed veterans, distinguished speakers, faculty members, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning to all of you. It's indeed an honor to have been invited for the inaugural address of the 14th Jambu Majumdar International Seminar. The seminar is a befitting tribute to one of our greatest legends, Wing Commander Karun Krishna Majumdar. His exploits have already been covered much in detail by Air Marshal Anil Chopra, so I'll not speak about it, but of course, he was a great legend, and that's what the internet and whatever he said today proves that. The subject of aerospace power and national security is of extreme relevance in today's context. And I'm thankful to CAPS for having conceived this particular subject and given us all an apt platform actually to share our views on and thoughts on these subjects and identifying possible solutions to emerging challenges to the national security. Air power is an essential element of national power. It has played a pivotal role in enhancing our defense capabilities and furthering national interest. In the Indian context, the utility of air power has been proved on more than one occasions. Air power is intrinsic characteristic of elevation, speed, reach, lethality, has the capability to destroy, demolish, diminish, deteriorate, degrade, and deny. IF has been a decisive factor in the outcome of many battles and campaigns and will be also in many of future conflicts. The destruction of the governor's house in 1971, in the 1971 Bangladesh war, the destruction of enemy armor in the Battle of Longewala, the dropping of essential commodities in Jaffna in 1987, the strategic airlift to Srinagar in October 47 are only a few examples. The utility of air power the utility of an airhead and the capability to maintain an air bridge to support besieged forces, as seen during the battles of Kohima and Imphal during the Burma campaign in 1944, air bridge to Leh in 1948, and use of the air medium for vertical envelopment to speed up operations during the Tangel drop in 1971, a few more examples that come to my mind. Over the years, air power has evolved to acquire new capabilities to shape the battle space. The primacy of air superiority through employment of precision weapons and electronic warfare capability as seen during the Arab-Israel wars and the ability of parallel operations during the Gulf War of 1991 saw air power emerging as a decisive tool or instrument of imposing national will. The technological advancements in the field of long-range weapons and network centricity has shifted the focus of air combat towards effect-based operations. This outlook went through a fundamental change with development of unmanned, non-kinetic as well as kinetic systems. The employment of these systems during recent conflict in Syria and Ukraine have made air power strategists to rethink and redraw new employment options. In the present fifth generation warfare, information dominance is becoming crucial to affect the cognitive domain of the adversaries. In addition, technological realignment, which has expanded the warfare into new arenas like space, cyber, and the cognitive domain, has resulted into the term aerospace to assume greater significance. In 21st century, we are all witnessing aerospace power complementing other instruments of national power for attainment of national goals. It's guiding nations to expand their airspace-based strengths and augment national security. Before proceeding any further, I'd like to share some of my thoughts on a couple of issues regarding air power. First is this concept of sovereignty. The concept of sovereignty on land is absolutely absolute. If it's violated, things have to be changed. Whereas in the concept of waters, actually, the seas, it is slightly nebulous. Because even in your territorial waters, men of war of other nations can fly, innocent passage, etc. as possible. In the area of air, actually, it's still, kind of evolving, I would say. In space, it is more, but in air also, it's emerging to be almost absolute. It's gradually acquiring a status of absoluteness in air also. Today, infringement of air sovereignty due to air violations, though temporary in nature, are not acceptable to the nation. They may have large consequences of legitimizing claims over disputed areas and territories, and thus acquiring round-the-clock airspace management and defense and employment of ISR for timely identification and to act is becoming more and more significant by the day. In space, this concept of air sovereignty, as I said, is still evolving. It's a global kind of an common. And it's been established by various treaties for peaceful use of airspace, but that is getting violated because of development of new technologies and new concepts by many nations. So there's a thought about how to, on the sovereignty of space, there's a thought that means we're going to do some more research and work on this particular aspect more. A state of no war, no peace has also blurred the classic difference between war and peace. Military power and therefore even the air power, being an essential element of national power, needs to provide options to handle this part of the spectrum as well. Punitive strikes during Balakot operations is a classic example of this. Air power can also be used effectively in situations between no war, no peace and all-out war. The imposition of no-flying zones over Iraq by coalition forces is a classic example of air power, hence can also be used for compliance, a better and more evolved mind game over deterrence actually. There's a general belief that use of air power is an escalatory kind of an action, which changes the threshold of ongoing conflict many folds. However, if we analyze some of the recent actions of the Air Force of adversarial nations, the escalation has been controlled in the air domain itself, like the firing of flares by PLAF over Australian P-8I aircraft or the shooting down of high-altitude balloons by the US Air Force. Doctrinally, there could be space for use of Air Force in the zone between no war, no peace and full-blown conflict only in the domain of air also. And that also needs to be thought about. The evolving nature of conflict or war, should I say, or how violence is perpetuated or managed when its use becomes essential for a nation state is changing. The change is driven by new technologies, newer concepts, and indeed newer experiences. However, one thing remains fundamental, that results are best achieved when all elements of national power are employed in a synergized kind of a manner. Now I'll dwell upon this concept of national security, and then before coming down to how air power manages it. It's hence essential for us to understand the changing nature of national security and the evolving concept of national power. National power is multifaceted and an all-encompassing concept which enmeshes all elements that strengthen the nation. It's a blend of nation's political will, human and natural resources, economic capability, technological competence, industrial infrastructure, and most important is its military capabilities. In a dynamic and complex world scenario, national security has much broader construct that also includes issues like safeguarding geopolitical interests, ensuring internal stability, preserving national resources, and achieving economic as well as social security. It envisages a symbiotic relationship between internal and external security, reinforcing the premise that a country's external posture is originally linked to its internal strengths. The construct is equally applicable to a nation which has its own set of challenges based on legacy issues of an unresolved and a disputed border. The continuity of proxy threat from Pakistan and assertive maneuvers by China have further expanded a threat spectrum which has with its own set of security-based challenges. The present scenario has further strained by events of pandemic and global turbulence due to economic crisis demanding retrospection of our national priorities. These events have highlighted the importance to understand that build deep linkages between the elements of national security so as to ensure secure, stable, and a developing environment for a nation. The concept of national security, as I said, is evolving as a threat to nations, territory, people, and ideology. Now, this is what actually national security is trying to defend, the three elements: territory, people, and its ideology. Is expanding into new domains. The architecture and place of national security also need to keep pace and transform. The tools employed by any country to employ the national power are generally framed under the instrument of diplomatic, informational, military, and economic, commonly termed as DIME. Chanakya, our own philosopher, viewed this same framework under the Saptanga theory. As per Earth Shastra, Swamin, that's the king, Amatya, that's the minister, Janpada, that's the people and the territory, Druga, that's the forts, fortification, Kosha, that's the treasury, focuses on internal security, while Danda, that's the army, and the Maitra, that's the allies, address the external dimension. The sum total of these prakrits or elements constitute the Shakti or the national power of a nation. National power of a nation, when viewed from the lens of securing the nation from internal as well as external threats, directly depends on the military capability of a nation, which is a subset of actually defense capabilities. The scope, ambit, and remit of defense capabilities is larger than military capabilities. It includes R&D threshold of the nation, capability to indigenously produce tools, weapons of war fighting, manufacturing infrastructure, both private and state-owned, efficiency and motivation of its workforce employed in defense manufacturing industry, defense relationship with other countries of concerns, etc. So there's a big difference between what I'm talking about, national security, national power, defense capabilities of a nation, and military power of a nation. So these are the three levels. So military capabilities is the hard power possessed by a nation in terms of war-fighting forces, their command control structures, training, motivation, etc. I'll try to see how it gets correlated between air power, aerospace power, and try and give some kind of a construct between this framework. The effective employment of national power demands application of the conceptual framework of air and aerospace power. The Indian Air Force's basic doctrine of 2012 defines air power as total ability of a nation to assert its wills through the medium of air. Air power mainly comprises of military assets of air forces and air arms of other services. This includes air as well as ground assets. Here actually I would like to introduce the term aviation power or aviation capability of a nation as an intermediate term between air power and aerospace power. It's analogous to defense capability when I describe the other three terms, which lies between national power and military power. When I talk about aviation capability of a nation, includes civil aviation infrastructure and air resources which can augment air power in times of crisis. It's well known that there is a close linkage between civil and aerospace industry and the military aviation companies. Largely, it's the same companies that make aero engines, avionics, airframes, etc. for civil as well as military aircrafts. A civil aviation sector has to translate into military capabilities in terms of aero engine sovereignty, MRO facilities, and indigenized development of next generation fighter aircrafts and helicopters. The recent example of this 417 civil aircraft being purchased by Air India worth 70 million, and this future demand which newspapers have been talking about of 1,200 more civilian aircrafts, has the capability of improving the military aviation infrastructure in the country. So it's got fallout on the other side, and we need to exploit that. And that would be important. So that is what I was mentioning about aviation capabilities of a nation. We're going to leverage that to build our military capabilities. Aerospace power in today's era space medium is being eventually utilized. However, this increase in dependency is also resulting in the threat spectrum expanding to the space dimension. It has resulted in space being identified as the fourth dimension of warfare. This has necessitated the requirement of developing aerospace power capability to exploit as well as protect assets. As per the latest doctrine of the Air Force, 2022, aerospace power exploits the air and space medium, and its nature is a function of the physical attributes of this dimension. This dimension not only serves as a medium for conduct of operations, but also for maneuvers, concealment, surprise, and host of other factors. Expansion in the airspace potential demands a nation to transit towards building aerospace-based capabilities. The effective utilization of air as well as space-based assets in execution of military operations, as well as participating in economic growth and national development, is the key to a self-reliant, prosperous, and developed India. Air power, being the element which is most sensitive to technology, requires holistic analysis, which would assist us in identifying next-generation missions. A similar approach towards exploring the potential of space has become essential for all of us. These elements of air and space power required to be connected through the strong bond of our defense capabilities in these sectors. This approach would ensure that we as a nation are future ready and strong enough to enhance national security. Evolving nature of air power has resulted into transition of roles aiming towards simultaneous deployment of lethal as well as non-lethal means. The future of air power, in my view, rests on unmanned platforms, a combination of unmanned platforms, unmanned manning and manned teaming, introduction of armed drones, UAVs, missiles, subsonic, supersonic or hypersonic, and this all actually, when it comes about, while the importance of air power remains, in my view again, may reduce the dependence on manned fighter aircrafts in future. The effective employment of air power for offensive application needs to be closely synchronized with a robust air defense capability network also. A robust defense setup would require air power to graduate towards sensor fusion with other domains and develop kill mechanisms in synergy with other elements of military power. Nations are investing in augmenting their airspace power. We as a nation have also realized this fact and have taken necessary initiatives to augment our aerospace-based capabilities. Navigation with Indian constellation Navik is planned to provide accurate PNT information to a wide band of users. Launch of multiple GSAT, RISAT and Cartosat series of satellites is augmenting our space-based ISR capabilities. GSAT series is strengthening our space-based communication facilities. The space sector reforms in 2020, promoting non-governmental entities, has provided the necessary boost to our space-based capabilities. They have also set a targets on achieving inter-domain net centricity to assist in optimum utilization of space-supported information. There are opportunities also developed in the zone between stratosphere and near space, resulting in development of solar-assisted platforms like high-altitude pseudo-satellites, HAPS. Nations are also exploring opportunities in cislunar zone. The journey of opportunities is also simultaneously witnessing development of multiple types of threats. The development in field of anti-satellite weapons and trans-domain platforms like hypersonic glide vehicles, oblique missiles, and ballistic missiles is widening the threat perception. The threat environment demands us to develop an integrated defense mechanism as well as demonstrate deterrence capabilities. It would ensure a coherent civil-military-based strengthening of space-based capabilities for future threats. In conclusion, the term jointness, earlier translated to the three services cooperating with each other, has much wider applications now, embracing even the civil domain. The fusing of civil and military capabilities, a complete united effort, holds the key to whole-of-nation approach towards national security. This would require us to work as a team which is thoughtful, together, and transforming in India. I am sanguine that this seminar will provide the ideal opportunity to understand and share perspectives that will assist in generating ideas to strengthen our airspace power and national security. I once again thanks CAPS and Director General Air Marshal Anil Chopra for providing an opportunity to undertake deliberations on this extremely relevant subject. My best wishes to everyone. Thank you and Jai Hind.
Thank you, General Chauhan, for delivering the inaugural address. I'm sure I speak on behalf of everyone here when I say that it was a great pleasure listening to you today. We will now move toward the release of a new journal on aerospace studies titled Blue Yonder. A biannual journal, Blue Yonder will focus on topics pertaining to aerospace power with the aim of facilitating greater understanding of these issues amongst the armed forces, the strategic community, and the public at large, while also contributing to policy generation and decision-making. May I please invite General Anil Chauhan, Chief of Defense Staff, Air Marshal Anil Chopra, Director General CAPS, Air Vice Marshal Anil Golani, Additional Director General CAPS, Group Captain T.H. Anand Rao, Senior Fellow CAPS, to kindly step up to the front for the journal release. May I request General Chauhan to do the honors. Thank you, sir. I request journal contributors to kindly gather on the first floor foyer for a group photograph. May I request everyone to please move to the first floor foyer as well for high tea now.